Hello and welcome
Yes.
to another episode of Next Level Love Stories, where we take a behind the scenes look at real life relationships to share the truth about what this adventure of love can look like and what it really takes to succeed. We're your hosts. I'm Dr. Jenny Wallig.
And I'm Coach Calvin O'Seely, and we're the founders of Powerful Love Relationships and the creators of the Be the One method for creating extraordinary relationships. And today, we're excited to welcome Adam and Eve Miller.
Hey, that's our real names, okay? Yeah.
Yes, it is. I'm sure you get lots of comments about that.
No kidding.
Oh no, that never happened.
Never. Yeah, I'm sure.
All the time.
Yeah. So one of the funniest ones.
Let me introduce you before you jump
That's
in.
fine.
Adam.
Yeah.
Because I want people to know a
I'll
little bit
keep
more
that
about
thought.
you than your really awesome name and
Yeah, their
pairing.
name combo. Yeah.
So, guys, Adam and Eve have been together for 14 and a half years.
Mhm.
They co-parent 5 kids, 3 of whom are theirs as a couple. And they are the founders of Discover Wholeness, which is a holistic experience coaching space that helps people integrate the knowledge of body, mind, heart, and spirit into a unified way of thinking, which creates a balanced way to thrive in our modern day-to-day lives.
Mhm.
This is a power couple that you want to hear from, that have so much to give and teach us about life and love. And we're so excited and happy to have you all
Yes.
here with
Welcome.
us.
Welcome.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. We love being able to get out and talk about things that change people's lives, and I think one of the biggest challenges that everybody is having, especially lately with these crazy media like the election and the whole messy thing, is that people are feeling very separated. You know what I mean? And so what we teach in our business and what we constantly remind each other of all the time is that unity comes first. Togetherness and love and sharing, those are the things that make a difference in our world. And our planet does not operate, without it. I'm kind of an old guy, so I'm 65.
24-year difference between us. That's kind of one of the interesting dynamic ways how our language is different, and then we met on our differences.
Yeah,
and unified us, and it was our differences that made it a very interesting dynamic relationship.
I bet.
Yeah.
Well,
and go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead and finish your story, Adam, and then I want to jump in and hear more about the love story.
Yeah.
Right. Well, what I was going to say was, it's not really about the story, but I think it's an important thing to say here, is because I'm the age I am, I grew up in an era of Mr. Kennedy. Okay. And when I think I must have been about 3 or somewhere in there, I actually saw him. So I wanted to mention that I actually saw President Kennedy when I was a tiny baby. I didn't have any interlude with him or anything, but I did see him. The other thing I wanted to say is I also grew up in an era of the Beatles, right? And all their songs, if you listen to them, I know you two are pretty young, but you get the point, and I'm sure that you have listened to their music many times.
Of course.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the message that was being spread across our great country was love, peace, and unity, and that's what they were bringing, and that's what President Kennedy, I think, brought too. So I feel like I wanted to add that in here a little bit.
I love it. So tell me about the love story that brought the two of you together in this world, in this life, because I know from speaking to y'all before, that is a pretty amazing journey that brought you together. And if you could just tell people how did you meet? How did it unfold?
Yeah.
And then I would love to hear, of course, about those differences that you have and how you navigated them, because that's a big one that comes up all the time in our work with couples.
Absolutely. So I'll go first and share my
She's
my
going
end of the
first.
story. And so I had just ended a relationship of 7 years to where I knew I no longer fit in. There was no room left for me in that conversation altogether. And I had, for the last year or maybe almost 2 years prior to that, began my journey going, you know what, there's got to be more worth. There's got to be better conversations, a better way of existing to where you begin to have a value, within a relationship. So I left that. And for about 6 months prior to meeting Adam, I had so many coincidences, little tiny things that would continuously catch my attention. One of the things, I kept looking at my wedding finger. At that point, it was a different ring. And I'm like, that's the wrong ring. That's the wrong ring. It was just something was beginning to really just knock on me, and I knew I had to be at a certain time and place. I had just started out my counseling business. It was the very first venue that I literally took whatever money I had scrounged up and in order to be there. Sure enough, it was the very place where I met Adam. Now, the whole day building up to that, the whole morning, the coincidence that I was talking about, they were every 5 minutes, and I'm like, what's going on? And I get to the expo, and across from me is Adam, and I'm like, oh my God,
there I was.
Something just was like exciting. When you're giddy for a first time, you're showing up for something, I was all nervous. I walked up, I extended my hand. I'm like, hi, I'm your Eve. And I went,
I kind of went,
I just came out of you.
Yes, I was red as his shirt. I'm like, I would never talk to a man that way.
And I kind of went, you're what? You're who? And the reason I reacted like that is because by that time, my business had already been 32 years. So I had been working as a practitioner 32 years.
Also in the counseling field?
More or less, yes.
Okay.
And I looked up at her sign. Here's what happened. So I looked up at her sign, right?
And it was like makeshift handmade sign. Okay, this is my first go at it. Okay, so I'm sure there was some judgment going.
Yeah, so I'll go with that. So because I'll just be blunt, I was egotistical, and I was definitely groovy and slick. And I had other employees there that were, because where we were at was a holistic health fair, basically.
Okay.
For alternative practitioners. There was also psychologists and some other people. You people like you, Jenny. There was all those professionals there. So it was a professional giant show with, I don't know, maybe 750 vendors. So just so you kind of feel what that feels like. Yeah. And I looked up at her son and I went, this can't be possibly happening. I mean, Adam and Eve, are you serious? What kind of crazy crap is that? And then she walked up and did what she said. And I kind of just looked down at her hand and I looked at her and I was like, whatever you say. Okay. And that was my response, right? Because in my booth that day, which was, I think it was like 3 spaces, right? So I had a big sign and I had people working for me and all that. And this young lady just came over and, she had this tiny little booth and a tiny little sign right across from me. And I just didn't know how to react, to that. And an interesting thing happened. So eventually I did put my hand out there, right? And I shook her hand, and I just had this overwhelming sense of well-being, right? So I had this overwhelming sense of that. And to give you a little background now on my end, okay? So I think it was maybe 5 to 7 years before this date that happened. I went through a terrible divorce. I had a child with this individual. She was awful. I'm going to be a little blunt, if that's okay.
Please.
She was a money grubbing witch.
Mm.
At that time, I was making about $150,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So I was working on 17 people a day. I was charging $350 an hour.
Wow.
And I was working 6 and 7 days a week. And this woman just took everything I had.
Oh.
So, and the court was in California. Yeah, baby. And in California, they take you if you're a man. So I was working in Lake Tahoe. So by the way, we met in Reno, Nevada, just so you kind of know where all this happened.
Cool.
And it was in the convention center, which is the biggest venue there in that town. So because of that divorce, right? And because it was really nasty and I didn't want to have, excuse me, Jenny, anything to do with women whatsoever.
Oh, I feel you. You got burned.
You know, other than in my business, I was totally fine with that.
Sure.
I probably had 10 to 1 of women, I think, in my business. And most of them were kind of older women that had all kinds of health issues, mental issues, spiritual issues, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't expect to meet anybody, to be honest with you guys. Like, I didn't expect to meet anybody because I was very, very, very turned off.
Yeah, you'd kind of close the door inside your own mind and
to
heart.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I you know, I feel like I'm being negative here, but and the positive part about that was the time, because my office was in Lake Tahoe. I don't know if you guys know where that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were there fairly recently.
Yeah, it's a spectacular place. I lived there for almost 40 years.
Amazing.
And the lake really, you know, healed me through that 5 to 7 year period there. And it's funny, people ask me how long was that, and I'm like, I don't know. It's like when you're
at a time, it would seem like a millennia, right?
Yeah, and then other days would be really, you know, quick, depending on how many people I had or whatever. But one of the things that happened, and I want to put this in our podcast because it's important, that when you go through a terrible divorce, I want everybody to hear this, that healing time after it is paramount. And the way I healed was I went out to the lake and I would go at 2:00 in the morning. And I can remember this one scene where, and I've told Eve about this night over and over again, where I sat on the beach down in a place called Emerald Bay. You guys probably know where that is now. And I just sat on the snow, and it was like snowing on me. And the moon came up, and this huge moon came up over the lake. And I could see the moon through the snowflakes as they were coming down. And I swear that late night, early morning, whatever you want to call it, at 2 a.m, I could hear the universe's sound, right? I could actually hear this amazing music coming from that scene. And it was only about maybe 6 weeks or so after that we met in the situation that we're describing. So I believe that was the turning point.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like the universe was kind of talking to both of you, setting you up somehow
at the same time.
Yep.
And
To meet.
on my end, because I don't want to forget about the ring thing. So for about 3 months, I kept feeling this ring on my hand. And it's this one, right? In the exact width and the exact weight of this ring for about 3 months. So
that's so cool.
I'm telling you, people, there's things out there.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, when that lightning hits you, and you two obviously know that, you know it. And it doesn't make any difference what that person looks like or what they sound like or whatever, because one of the things that I really don't like in our business is when I get men that come with relationship stuff and they're like, well, you know, she's got to be blonde and she's got to be tall and she's got, I'm just like, are you nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Love has nothing to do with appearances at all. Zero.
Mm.
Are you saying? No, I'm just joking.
Go ahead.
So no, just
Get yourself in trouble.
And both of us, within the first 72 hours of meeting, we engaged in some very lengthy, in-depth conversations right away. It's as if we met a friend, and there was bring everything to the table. We knew that there was baggage. We knew that there were things, that there were experiences and scars and such like that. And both of us, I think, grew in such value for what we have found just within that time, that we kind of just created this space that everything else, I don't think we talked about it much. I think it was a mutual agreement that we were not going to bring and impose our pain. He's not to fix me. I'm not to fix him. We're just there to enjoy our conversations, being time together, And I think that space of celebrating whatever we just came upon was a fantastic foundation to build on.
Now, that doesn't mean, however, that, because I'm always the devil's advocate, and I'm wearing red, can you tell? I'm always like this. That doesn't mean that there wasn't junk in the trunk.
Sure.
That doesn't mean that we didn't have disagreements on social things. I'll put it like
parenting
that.
Things,
social things, maybe history about, say, our family's differences. Now, I do want to mention that Eve is a full-blooded Lithuanian.
She was born and raised.
Okay, so she was born and raised.
The world there.
Yeah, a full-blooded Lithuanian, was not born in America whatsoever. Thank God. And, because this is interesting. When we first met, right, the differences in the way Europeans look at the world, right, and the way Americans look at the world, what I learned very quickly was two things. One is that she looks at the world in a global view.
Sure. Yeah.
Americans look at the world in an American view.
Yep.
It makes a lot of sense. Yep.
And that's the difference. The only thing that saved my ass, sorry about my language,
no worries,
is that I don't know how much you guys know about me, but I'm a figure skater.
That's cool.
So I started figure skating when I was 2 years old, and I went up through the ranks of the senior level, which means 7 double jumps, backflip, double axel, this kind of thing. And I went to the Holiday on Ice in Europe. So
I still use the wall to stop.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and
there's many differences between the two of you, I'm sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, and when she gets out there, I help her. No, okay, so yeah, there's that. Anyway, what saved me was that I spent 13 years in Europe. Okay, so then from 18 years old up through those years, I had more of a global point of view.
Yeah.
So I think it's really, really important here to say this, that I think Americans as couples, yes, really need to, as much as they can, either get educated through the computer about Europeans / Asians / Mexicans / whoever.
Other cultures.
Yeah.
All the other cons, like my grandmother used to say, those cons? I'm like, yeah, I know them. All them. What happens to you is you accept culture rather than reject culture, right? And I think when you do that, because when I was in the European skating show, I had a lot of different girlfriends in the show. There was 280 skaters in the show, okay? And they were from all over the world. It was not American on any level. It was a European show. And one of the things that happened during that show is I was able to understand that our global community, that we all live on this planet, we have to get along, right? We have to get along. And Eve has taught me that exponentially. right, to the 14 years, she keeps reminding me, no, it's not about, the USA. It's not about that. It's about everybody getting along and so on. And I think, of course, the Ukrainian war and various other things that are happening bring to the forefront how important it is for couples, right? American or not American, to be able to get along and have a bigger view about who we all are.
Yeah.
Right.
It's that focus, circling back, it's that focus on the unity and love that is so core and foundational.
Yes.
And so I'm curious, like, how, clearly y'all were meant to find each other, and your life stories primed you to have this really beautiful next level love. But as you mentioned, Adam, there was some junk in the trunk. There were some differences. Can you share a little bit about, like, some of the biggest challenges that you faced as a couple navigating those differences, and how you were able to prioritize that unity, like how you were able to keep that bigger picture? And really
I've got something to start with there. Okay, I got something.
Okay, but then I want to hear from Eve too.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll go with my. Well, it is a shared space.
It is a shared space.
Is it a shared space?
Just want to acknowledge.
I just want to know. Yeah. Okay, so on my end, Eve had a horrible marriage. Okay, that she was in the middle of breaking up when we met. She had not quite done the whole thing yet. This was a Russian guy, and he, because of his macho stuff, was not able to give her up, right? Because he wanted to be right no matter what. And you know that. You guys know this. Everybody wants to be right no matter what. And so the way that he wanted to be right is he wanted to hang on to her children. So a battle ensued, obviously, in court. And on the exterior, this guy was stalking her. Oh, right. So he was stalking her and making it very, very dangerous for everybody.
Sure.
And so on my end, I'm like, well, I can always beat the hell out of him and end it.
There's a solution. It's a choice.
And instead, we had a confrontation one day that was in a parking lot in which he walked up to our truck while we were exchanging children, right? Because that whole nastiness. And he started at me or whatever, and I just grabbed him by the throat and I pulled him into the truck and I said, this is the end of this and we're going to end it now. And it ended it. Believe it or not, you guys, that actually ended it. And the only thing he needed to hear, I guess, was that somebody needed to say, this is the end of the violence, all right? This is the end of the danger. This is the end of the threat to your ex-wife. This is the end of, and needless to say, for her two children, it was exponentially dangerous.
Sure.
For many, many reasons. People were driving crazy and all kinds of stuff, all right? He would go peeling out of the parking lot when he would take the kids and stuff like that. So we ended the whole thing in court finally, and more or less worked it out. You know what I mean?
But it was this idea of recognizing whenever a drama was present to, yes, the first initial impulse is always to react. The first initial impulse is to go and fix it or get your say in it or whatever. But then there's that step back to where you begin to reassess your values. And one of them was peace. One of them was safety. One of them was going, okay, we cannot integrate drama into our future because this is something that would continue. And so it was this, and that's something that we still to this day have, is that conversation of when you begin to really now define a drama or a problem or a challenge, to talk about it, what's there at loss, what's there at stake if you fully engage, what's there, and make sure everybody is represented in that conversation.
Right.
Mhm.
Now,
And
people
yeah.
get within, when people see us, like I'm sure you're watching, one has a very strong personality. I'm an extreme introvert, right? But
Mhm.
then at the core, it's always the same values. We
Mhm.
defined that long ago, what's important to us,
Mm.
and making sure that the children are safe, making sure that we are not putting ourselves into this mental rut of unsolvable puzzles,
Right.
and
or putting the children in a mental rut of
that too,
unsolvable puzzles,
that too.
right?
Mhm.
And we ended up from that situation, we ended up just actually entirely removing ourselves out of that.
Yeah,
Mm.
we actually moved to a different state.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
which my wife was like, I really need to move you away from him.
There you go.
Okay. So, and we both agreed that, hey, and also too, while that was happening with him and I, my business was suffering,
Mm.
Mhm.
right? My business was suffering because
Yeah,
I was always
the
worried.
energetics of relationships affect all
Yep.
parts of our
Like
life.
vampires.
All of it.
Mhm.
Absolutely every bit of it. And you would
Mhm.
think that I would know better than that. Okay. After all the years I spent helping people, right?
Mm.
It's very easy to tell people, as you guys know,
Yeah. It's a whole other
how it
thing to
is
live
and
it.
what it is and where it
Yeah.
is and why it is and with whom. But all of a sudden, when you're the whom, right?
Mhm.
You're the folks,
Mhm.
and the rubber meets the road there. Then what ends up happening is all of a sudden your values, right,
Mhm.
begin to change somehow, and you can find yourself between a rock and a hard place if you're not, really, really careful. So after that situation, the whole entire thing just settled out.
Yeah.
And
I
we
bet.
worked it all out. My business returned to normal,
Mhm.
and we kept going. We actually moved to Arizona for a while.
Nice. Nice. So one thing I want to just like pull out from the story that you're sharing is that um you're talking about I mean like two big things. One is the values and knowing what they are and really anchoring in those as you think about what decision you want to make, how you want to respond to the challenges that show up in your life. The other thing that I'm hearing that maybe you didn't say quite so directly, but that sounds like is a part of this story, is the ability to like slow down and bring consciousness
Mhm.
to how you want to respond. So you're not just in reactivity,
Exactly.
right? You're actually thinking about what are the values, what is at stake here for everyone, who are all the players we need to consider here. And that is such a key piece, I think, to having a next level relationship, to really
Mhm.
being able to succeed in navigating challenges and differences and hard things in life, is that slowing down and being conscious about
Yeah.
how you want to
Yeah.
respond, so
The
you're not
next
just
step.
reacting.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, there was another factor to this, okay,
Mm.
which is probably the most important factor where, Calvin, I'm sure you're going to understand this well here, where a man is concerned, and that is that Eve was pregnant.
Mm.
Okay.
Oh
So
yeah, that brings a
I
whole
would,
other
Yeah.
layer.
that's a whole level of risk,
Mhm.
and I'll call it risk management, really, uh,
Mhm.
that you have to bend to. You cannot go around it. And then, Eve was getting upset about that and,
Mhm.
things with him and I and all that. And so the undoing, I'm going to be blunt today. Okay. I'm always blunt. The,
Yeah.
the undoing of violence. Okay. Between families,
Mm.
when you get things that have to do with children,
Mhm.
can not happen.
Mm.
You cannot have it.
Cannot undo the violence, or you
You
can't
ca-
have violence.
you cannot have that violence.
Right, you
Yeah.
If
must
things that have to
undo
do
it.
with violence, you
Right.
must undo because you
Yeah.
cannot have it.
Yes. Gotcha. Yep.
And especially when there's an unborn child and a vulnerable mother and, all
Mhm.
of the rest of it.
Mhm.
All players are important. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And this is the interesting one for me, was after all that settled down, I really wanted her ex to be able to calm down enough, because I'm telling the two of you, this guy's a whack job. Okay. He's nuts, crazy. I needed him to calm down enough so her children didn't get beaten.
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
Because he used to beat them.
That's sad.
So I couldn't have that either.
Right.
And I realized that my behavior was escalating what he was going to do when he got home, see?
Mm-hmm.
Such as, okay, well, what did they tell you about me? And all that.
Mm-hmm.
And we stopped all of that, and it really came out in the wash and really worked out.
Mm-hmm.
And today, Eve's son is 18 years old, and, they've worked all that stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Nice.
And we've never even so much as seen the ex. So, it just takes a lot of time. Time is the major factor, I believe, with relationships, regardless of what the, subject matter is.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So back to the story sorry, we really took you around the tree there.
That's good.
After the convention center, I just looked at Eve and I said, hey, let's just walk over, because the casino was like right next door. And they have a sushi bar there that I love. I love sushi. There it is. And we spent all night there.
We talked till they kicked us out. Yes.
Yeah. I think it was 4:30.
I love that.
And
Yeah.
and it was just the topics of whatever would be of interest, whatever would be a commonality, whatever would be something that he celebrates, I celebrate, and all things that were that we even to this day depend on.
Yeah.
All that craziness was within the first year and a half. And I think because that was also based on that hype of the relationship being new. There's a lot of euphoria there. A lot of my knight on the white horse came by to rescue, right? And things like that. I mean, again, that's just that understanding of value. People, will deny this as much as they can, but we all keep track of the investment the other person has made into the relationship by showing up at the time when you need it. Being able to navigate very difficult conversations and actually being there instead of going, you know what, too much, I'm walking out. Right? Actually just being there. And it's not, love for us is not a feel-good thing. Love for us, it is a partnership that our kids can depend on and grow their stability of their understanding of the world. Love for us is showing up for common missions that we both are dedicated to. Love for us is there to support as whether we're going, whatever bodily transitions we're going through, be it an illness, be it a pregnancy, be it whatever,
Be it getting old.
Yeah, that's real.
And then we just made things not taboo in our family. Our kids are able to talk. We have a 13-year-old right now, and he is well versed in understanding how people are, and I often talk, and the youngest is 6. And again, there's just nothing that we keep out of the conversation going, oh, no, this is not for kids.
I think we're a bit, which is really funny, I think we're a bit like the hippies in the 60s, actually.
Yeah. I'd say,
we're
I use the word eclectic.
She's always yeah, there's that.
Wherever my headphone went. There we
she
go.
Is always saying how she's hippie.
No,
right?
She's naturalist, yes.
Okay. Well, she does use the word hippie. So, hippified, which is what we used to call it in the 60s, okay? And natural and expressive. And being able, for instance, Chris is the oldest one.
The 13-year-old.
He's 13, right? So the whole thing about women is obviously coming up for him. You know, right, Calvin? I mean, it's right there, and like, what's going on with me, and how come I feel this way, and how come I'll be nice now and say things in the morning. I'll put it like that. And and pictures and magazines, and And he's in school with girls now and whatever, and they're beginning to talk to him, and he's a really beautiful, physically beautiful child.
Mm-hmm.
That's because he looks like me. But anyway, that's it. All right. Actually, looks like his mother.
Combo.
He's big. He's tall. He's a beautiful kid. He has decided to be a Navy pilot, by the way.
That's cool.
Which is a very admirable job, obviously.
For him, cars are not fast enough, so he's looking.
No, he wants that 4-dimensional space. He wants to be able to go upside down and all of that. I'm a car guy, by the way. We do all the hot rod shows, and we've had lots of muscle cars and all that. Which I'm bringing that up because that is a family thing that since we first met, we do together. So we go to car shows, whether they're in California, Arizona, or Nevada. We still do it. And I want to say something about that. It is very, very important as couples, right, to have common interests in which, even if you don't necessarily like, I can't say Eve is a car girl really, but she enjoys going, and she finds aspects of the car shows that she can enjoy. And one of the aspects that she does enjoy is there's lots and lots and lots of other men's wives there, and they talk about different things and so on, because we'll set chairs up and everybody's together.
The whole community aspect of it,
Sure.
and seeing how kids are invited there. And
common things together, and I'm sure with the two of you also, are very important. We're going to give a good example. We've got a giant tent set up in our living room today because we're going to go camping this weekend. So, in Arizona, you can go camping all year, basically. And commonality, that's, I think, a really important topic.
Yeah, I think that's...
Go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead. Well, I think now that we're on the topic, because I think that's a really good sort of bit of advice or like words of wisdom that you just shared. And I'd love to hear, certainly from you, Eve, as well. Like, if you could give advice or words of wisdom for what you all have learned over the course of 14 and a half years, like what would that look like for you?
So everybody wants commonality. Everybody wants predictability. Everybody wants that unity. However, that is not that. In order to get that is not what the skill that you need to bring to the table is. It's a result of what you do, but it's not something you demand. The very moment you begin to chase that, the very moment you begin to compare another individual to yourself, you're going to start nitpicking. And then you're going to start looking at looking at differences as a negativity, as something to work on, as something to still convince through and change that person, whether you say it or not. I happen to have one of those faces that, I give out. All my expressions are given out, my opinions. But whether a person says that verbally or has a totally walled off expression, nonetheless, when you are connected with another individual, you feel that, that, right? So it is in the elevation and celebration of something different, of something that they're authentic about.
Yeah.
It gives the permission to the person to be who they are. It makes them feel safe in that environment where you're at, where you're sleeping, where you're most defenseless, and it giving of yourself in order to achieve commonality, in order to achieve that unity, is, I think, that the whole game of that. When Adam was talking about the differences of the European approach or the understanding in USA, it's not in the terms of in a negativity, it's just simply in what he was talking about is in Europe, the countries are pocket-sized. One next door speaks a totally different language, has their own history and everything. And there's no trying to push that your celebration of who you are onto another person. Everybody goes to visit and it's fun, and then you go back to where it is. So it is that ability to simply accept another person just how they are.
Mm.
And no, you're not going to like it 100% of the time. And if you do, you're just lying to yourself.
I thought you liked me 100% of the time. What happened? Am I missing something? Anyway, okay.
No, I really appreciate.
Do you see this look? I'm going to get it later.
Oh, yeah. And I want to highlight that because Cal and I too, we're very different.
Mhm.
We have so many differences, and as you're speaking to like this commonality, this unity, this peace, being a result of how you are showing up, how you're giving of yourself, and whether you're accepting your partner's differences. Like in the beginning of our relationship, we did see those differences as a problem, and it wasn't
yeah.
A lot of people
until,
do.
and as a lot of
Yeah,
people
yeah.
do, right? And
Mhm.
it became a problem,
Mhm.
and it wasn't until
Oh no, you two don't have any issues, do you?
I know. We're human, and that side note, that's such an important piece of this podcast, right? Is that we want to highlight that even people with extraordinary relationships or these magical finding each other stories, like we still have these human experiences
Mhm.
where we struggle and we have to learn and, and like we get
screw
pulled
up.
out of our values
Mhm.
because we're activated or triggered, or we need to do some healing work. That's all very real.
Yeah,
But as I
and
was saying, just real quick, I want to just point out that, like, to your point, Eve, it wasn't until we started really accepting and celebrating one another's differences and not seeing them as a problem that things got so much better and easier, because that creates that safety.
Mhm.
And now you can find the commonalities, and turns out we have so much in common despite
Being so different.
being so incredibly different. But that love, that peace, that unity, that happened when the acceptance happened first. So I think that is such a
Good point. Yeah,
great
perfect point.
pearl of wisdom to share. So thank you.
And one of the things that happened to me, and this is one for the men out there, okay, this part. I operated my business in a way when I was single, totally different. And I'll explain it. So when I was single and I was operating my business, I kept getting married anyway, and I kept being single. So what's that tell you? Yeah, I got married like 3 times before Eve. All right. So I kind of went up and down with that. That's a really bad pun right there. But anyway, I'm glad I'm making you guys laugh, okay? Because I think if we have humor with this whole craziness, we're all going to survive in the end.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, I operated my business like this, okay? So I was very picky and very outspoken with my employees as to who I vetted before they came to see me, right? So I was very, very picky and very careful about who got in my office, because I used to have a waiting list of about 300 people.
Wow.
So because I was down in a little place called Nevada City for a little while in California, and that place just exploded for me because I had everybody between San Francisco, actually between Los Angeles and Lake Tahoe to see. Yeah. So it just went nuts. And when I met Eve, something really strange happened. She got pregnant. Yeah.
That's
so strange.
And
it happens.
I don't know.
How did that happen?
I wasn't there. Anyway, it just was immaculate conception. But anyway,
right.
No, it's not Mary Joseph. It's Adam and Eve.
See. Now he gets that. Okay, so Calvin got that immediately. So I was wondering who was gonna, get that.
Oh yeah, he's the quick-witted one.
So by the way, Calvin, you are red in the face, buddy.
It happens when I laugh hard,
Good. Yeah. So then Eve gets pregnant, right? And I flipped out. And here's what I mean. I was like, oh crap. I've got to take everybody. I can't be picky anymore, and I've got to take everybody.
Ah.
The
And
survival
so,
and
and that
yeah.
survival,
Yeah.
that male survival instinct
Mhm.
of a child coming
Mhm.
just completely flipped me out.
Sure.
Right? To the point of where I was drinking about 25 beers a day.
Oh.
Whoa.
I was working 17 to 19 hours a day,
Wow.
7 days a week. And I went on that routine for about a year.
Wow.
While she went through the pregnancy, while she went through the whole thing. Now, I was never drunk at work. I only drank at night, and I only did it socially at the sushi bar, and that was it. So my drinking thing is not really part of the story, in my opinion, other than it was solving my stress in my mind. Now, you two know as well as I do, it was just a mask. That's all I was doing.
Right.
It was just masking what was happening. And Eve was like, what the hell? Okay. Like, who am I with all of a sudden?
Mm-hmm.
And it was that recognizing a need that was happening, that was brewing underneath there. And yes, the intensity of that work that I first entered on to the scene was very, very intense, right? It was very demanding, very fast, driving all over the place. And so the first few years we integrated. I strapped on the baby. I was there at the office. I was there with everything that was happening, all the events and everything, right? And so our oldest, the 13-year-old, I literally now could take him and put him anywhere in the world. He'll carry a conversation, make friends, come back with gifts, and and that.
He was literally for 1 year, never in the same city for more than a week.
Yeah.
All right. So we had this gigantic Yukon, right? And we loaded it up with stuff. I think we were home 1 week out of 4 in a month.
Probably even less at times,
and sometimes even less than that. So, and I just put, balls to the wall, literally, and pedal to the metal. And I went, I'm going to make this work. And I watched myself do this.
Yeah.
And I watched myself do this. And I watched myself do this.
Yeah, just go downhill, keep sinking lower and lower.
Yeah, just.
So what would be your advice for men? You started like, this is advice for men.
Hey,
men
I'm going to make this really simple. Okay. Don't freaking flip out just because your wife gets pregnant.
Okay.
Or any other need that comes
You know what I mean?
up,
Don't, but that's the main one. Don't flip out because your wife gets pregnant. Now, I'm going to give myself a little bit of credit with something. All right. She got pregnant within just days of knowing each other.
Yeah.
All right. So 9 months later, which I was thoroughly unexpecting, we were standing in the kitchen and I was holding onto the counter and I was having my usual beer, right? And she said, oh, I got to tell you something. And she's so casual about it. She's like, oh, well, we're pregnant. And I'm like, boom. And I hit the floor. Completely unconscious. I actually did. I hit the floor.
Wow.
So all that stress, like leading up to things happening, finally just took over. Boom. And I kind of stood up and I was like dazed out. I'm like, okay, where's my beer? So, and it took me about 3 months. Check this out. It took me 3 months to get over that one moment. That's how much stress.
Yeah.
Because everybody, I want to keep this in mind. I'd gone through a terrible divorce with a child with another woman and all of that. And I never got any counseling. I never did any anti-stress other than going to the lake, which did help. And I never actually spoke to a single healthcare professional in 7 years. I want everybody to hear this. Your mind is just as important as your body is, all right?
100%.
Jenny knows this, okay? This is what you do. This is what you guys do, okay? This is what your thing is. You're doing the mind job. That's what you're doing. You're helping people with their minds. It's not so much anymore with people's bodies. That's part of it, but it's our minds that are having the separation stuff. Right? And what I went through was a kind of almost like a separation from my wife. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. Rather than going toward my wife, it was a separation from my wife. Oh, I got to do more work. Oh, I got to do more hours. Oh, I got to make more money. And I don't care who comes to see me.
So eventually, you hit the wall and you have those conversations. Now, it's not a conversation you have once. It's not a fix it. Oh, look, here's what it looks like. Here's your issues. Here's my issues. Let's all be better and merry. It was really this believing that there is a way to balance everything out. And there goes my podcast, my AirPods, but that there is a way to balance it out. And then it was just over the years integrating the family, integrating balance, integrating self-care, integrating these moments of being able to just to meet. Our meeting space, we kids know we meet every other day. And
yeah, we have a
everybody's
family
invited.
meeting.
Yeah. So to where we just acknowledge things, to that need attention, to how everybody's feeling. We alter plans based on that. And we kind of learn to edge out that ego, that angst, that
Well, I don't, but she does.
I want to.
Right.
I think this is such a beautiful kind of transition into our wrap up, which is around like the reality that there's always a leveling up. So what you're speaking to right now, Eve, is that like y'all had to learn. You had to keep doing the integration. You had to keep doing the course correction. You had to get feedback from one another and from your kids about how things were going so that you could readjust again. And it brings us back to the consciousness and intentionality, right? You decided to do that. You decided that this is going to be a priority and that we're going to keep talking about and checking in on what needs to change. How do we get better? What does our family need? What do we need? And that is such a profound like value to anchor your relationship in, because it keeps you open to and on the path of that growth and leveling up so that things can just keep getting better. And as you learn and as you get challenged and as new things come up, you get better and better and better.
Yeah. And what I wanted to say was how I came out of that, because we all need to know that, right? Not just talking about what happened. So after that, I ended up having kidney stones from the alcohol. And went through an 8.5 hour operation from it. And then I realized it. Well, if you don't realize it after that, I don't know what to tell you. And I slowed down, right? So by the time the second child came, I was very, very even. And I didn't change my job. I didn't do anything different with it. I didn't go extreme, and I didn't go any more. Matter of fact, I went a little less. And by the time the third child came, we were doing very, very well in our relationship. We understood ourselves really well by 14 years.
Sure.
And today, our relationship is extremely positive and very open. And, we don't leave anything out. A lot of people will just not say things forever. And we don't do that. We talk about every subject, and we do it every day.
That's beautiful. Love it. Well, listen, this has been beautiful. There's lots of important wisdom here for couples to glean and take and consider for their own lives.
Yeah.
As we wrap up, we would love for you to just share a little bit about what you do in the world and how anybody who feels resonance with you might connect with you and learn more about or get involved in your work.
Sure.
So we set up Discover Wholeness, that we're both co-founders of, as a result of our communication, as a result of what our needs were. As everybody is aware of, before it was hit it as hard as you can, as much as you can, and now this was a birth of a new business that we started earlier in the year. this is the 2.0 version, to work
Nice.
to do it with harmony, with the things that we have learned. Definitely gaining greater understanding of the integration factors of the different parts of ourselves.
Mhm.
So now we work with people who are business oriented, who have families or not, who have health challenges or not, who have relationship situations or not, and being able to just carry a conversation that regardless where they are at, we celebrate what works and really get under whatever is going on and elevate the values that propel a person. You know,
Mhm.
when a person has their values right in front of them, that's a solid
Yeah.
foundation. And you can go through challenges.
Mhm.
You can go through conversations, you can go through difficulties, and you can go through triumphs as well that way.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, what I
Absolutely.
want to say is more of the nuts and bolts of what it is. So we offer a few things. Okay.
Mhm.
So one of those is one-on-one experiences, either over the computer or live, with either myself or Eve.
Mhm.
The other things that we're working on doing now is we're going to have live events in which
Cool.
we are going to rent some venues and have some folks come and listen to the motivational things that we're going to be going through, and things like that. So that's basically what's happening. We also have a really fun thing. So we are offering 4-week courses. You
Mhm.
guys can find those on the website.
Mhm.
And they're a whole, I think, $59.95 or something like that for a 4-week course in dealing with everything from the public health care crisis to different personal problems with people, health issues, mental
Mhm.
issues, and we're big on spirit. So we are alternative believers. I'm a Buddhist, and Eve is a alternative believer also.
Mhm.
And we also talk about those topics, and we also have our own podcasts as well.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Awesome. Well, we will make sure to put the links
Yeah, we'll drop them
in
in the chat.
the chat for everybody so they can find you if
Cool.
they want to.
Mhm.
To those who have listened to this amazing conversation, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope that you'll join us next week for another Next Level Love Story.
Mhm.
And please share your takeaways in the chat. What did you learn about love today?
Yeah, and we also just want to thank you, Adam and Eve,
Yes.
Yep.
for
Thank you for
being
being
Thank you
here
here.
so
and
much,
sharing your
Jenny
story.
and Calvin, for everything.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.